we're going to make this holographic site right here in Blender from scratch. Now, just a little heads up, this is not really a beginner tutorial, so if you are a beginner, you're probably going to see me use a bunch of techniques here which you're not going to be familiar with. If you do want to familiarize yourself with all these different techniques, I explained every tool and technique that I ever use in Blender inside my Blender Masterclass course. There's a link for that in the description so you can check it out. Now I'm going to shut the fuck up and we're going to start modeling. Now, every time when I make one of these videos and I use a reference image, it's always somebody asking me, Aryan, can you send me a link for the reference image? I don't know what planet you're living on, but on my planet, you can just Google any object known to man and it's going to give you 6 million different pictures of that object. So just type in Holo site into Google, take a picture like this one right here. Maybe you can search a little bit longer. This is the one that I'm using in this video. And then you're going to take this picture and you're going to throw that shit into a little program like PureRef. If you don't know what PureRef is, again, just go to Google, type in PureRef, and you're going to be able to put together a bunch of reference images like I did right here so I can look at this as a modeling. Now in Blender, I like to squeeze this down a little bit to make it a little bit smaller because it's way too large by default, and I just like to throw it up here into this little corner. I like to put my references on top of my outliner because I don't really need my outliner for anything anyway. And we're also going to use a side view reference. I found this website right here called Recoil Gunworks. Just Google the fucking website. The third picture on this page is a side view picture. Now, for some reason, I can't just save this image directly from the website, so we're just going to zoom in and take a screenshot, save that to our computer, and that's going to be our blueprint. Now in Blender, I'm just going to go side view. I'm going to go Shift A, image, add a reference image. And now you can just load in a picture from your computer. So I'm going to use this one right here, add that into the scene. And we're also going to use this little menu on the side, check opacity, reduce opacity, and just throw that into the background a little bit. Now here's how we're going to create this holo site. First, you have to pay attention to the shape of this object. You're going to notice if you look at the reference image, there's an inner part and then there's an outer shell. And now with Shift A, we're going to add a circle. That circle has to have 28 vertices. Don't ask me why we're using 28. I just tried with a couple of different numbers. 28 seemed to work best. Usually you want to try and stick to numbers which are divisible by 4. That way it's going to be easier to separate your circle into quarters if you have to, but in this case I want to align my circle with my view. We're going to scale that down a bit. We're going to place it over here on top of this circle in the reference image. Then we're going to extrude that backwards to turn it into a little cylinder. Don't worry about the thickness for now. We're going to use a mirror modifier later. But now we're going to take one of the vertices from the top here. We're going to extrude that backwards to around here somewhere. And once we bring this vertex up to around here somewhere, then it starts to kind of curve upwards. So we can extrude this vertex, pull it up to around here somewhere. And then we're going to take this corner over here. We have to take this entire edge. We have to go to side view and bevel it so that the bevel matches this curve, which you can see in the reference image. It doesn't got to be exact, but I figured it's something like this. I'm going to use 7 or 8 segments here. I don't want to use too many. I think this will do the job just fine. And also I'm going to take a vertex from down here. I'm going to extrude that backwards as well. I'm just trying to construct a sort of outline for this central piece on the inside here. And then later we're going to add all the other different elements, which you can see in this reference image. So now let's also extrude this vertex at the top backwards a little bit so we can give this a little bit of thickness. We're going to align that edge with this one down here by scaling these two to 0 on the x-axis. Let's fill that for now. Let's also fill this shape over here. I know it's an n-gon, but don't worry, it's going to be fine. We're going to get rid of that later. Also fill this part here. And now we can delete all these faces on the inside here because we don't need those. I know the topology looks absolutely fucking horrendous right now, but don't worry, we're going to clean it up. This is just going to make it a million times easier to create this shape. We also have to bevel this little corner up here, and now this is going to allow us to create the shape that we're supposed to have here. So if you zoom into your reference image, you're going to see that this part here has been cut out from the shape, and that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to select this surface and control select down here. As you can see, I selected 3 faces from this circle, and now I'm going to press I to inset and then B to disable boundary because I don't want to have an edge over here on this side. We're going to set the thickness to something like this, and then this is what's going to allow us to cut out this hole. So to create the hole, let's take this vertex down here. We're going to slide that inwards with double G. We can select this entire surface, X delete faces. We don't need this face in the back, and now we can very easily select this entire edge loop here, extrude, right click, scale to 0 on the x-axis, pull that shit backwards a little bit. And all we have to do now is organize this geometry here a little bit better. So let's do that. The cursor over here, I'm going to set the pivot point to 3D cursor. I'm going to duplicate all of this and scale it to -1 on the y-axis so I can mirror it over to the other side. And I'm going to delete this other half later because I still want to use a mirror modifier as we go. But right now I need some geometry on this side so I can select these vertices and join them with these over here. So if I select 2 vertices, I can press J, and that's going to create an edge segment between those 2 vertices. And then I don't have to have these shitty long strong overlapping edges, which you can see over here. So I'm going to do that with a couple of the vertices over here on both sides like this, as you can see me doing right now. So as you can see, I want to have something like this, and now I just have to get rid of my spare geometry. So I can take this edge, slide it up, take these two edges down here, slide that shit up, then take these three, slide them up. I also want these, we're going to get rid of those. And to clean that up, you just got to press M, merge vertices by distance. We're going to do the same thing with this edge segment over here. Let's also join these over here in the front, get rid of this next edge segment, and now this is a lot cleaner. So now this is way too thick. We're going to delete one half like this. Now we can go ahead and add our mirror modifier from the generate section here. I don't want x-axis, that's not going to work. Y is not going to work either. We got to set this to z-axis. Now it's reflecting from the origin point, so we have to place the origin point onto the 3D cursor over here, and then the mirror modifier works fine. So now we can just pull this inwards a little bit. That's going to make it thinner, but there's also something more that we have to do with this shape over here, because this part at the bottom has to be thicker than this part. So one way to do that is to place our 3D cursor over here with Shift S. We're going to use this menu on the side to activate our shear tool. You got to make sure that you're using your 3D cursor as your pivot point, and then select these faces underneath the 3D cursor on the inside here. And then you can use this little slider. You can slide that inwards like this. That's going to create this little angle. So I think you can see what I'm trying to accomplish here. You can see that this is kind of what we can see on the reference image here. Maybe I also want to select these faces and then move them inwards with G and Y, just so I can also move this edge here a little bit. That's just going to make a slightly smoother transition, so it's going to look a little bit more natural. So now that we got this out of the way, let's take this circle. We're going to extrude that outwards a little bit. Then we're going to inset it. We're going to extrude it inwards. We're going to delete that circle. But the problem is that over here on the other side, it looks completely different. So I need to get another image for that. So here's a different angle of what I'm talking about. As you can see over here on this side, we don't have the adjustment knob. It's just a little piece of plastic. And by the way, guys, if you want to see me do this shit, I guess this is like a magnifier or something, you can let me know in the comments. I want to make another video about that. I don't know if you guys are interested in watching me make fucking weapon attachments, but I think it's pretty cool. So let me know if somebody wants to see that. But anyway, to create this shape, we're going to apply the mirror modifier. I'm going to select this geometry over here on the other side. We got to delete that. And now we also got to delete this big n-gon right here. I'm going to select one half of this circle. We're going to extrude that outwards a little bit like this. And then I want another loop cut over here. I need to align that loop cut with this vertex down here at the bottom. So I'm going to use my 3D cursor to scale this to 0 on the x-axis like this. So now I can fill these two edges here with F. That gives me a little triangle. I'm also going to place my 3D cursor over here and extrude these edges and align them with the 3D cursor out here. And now I have to cut these four faces over here from the top. So if you look at them, they're going to look exactly the same as this triangle. And to do that, I can just go to top view. I can just press K to get my knife tool, click here, press C to cut through, then click over here, hit enter. And now just delete the four faces on the outside, and now the shapes are going to match. We just have to improve the geometry a little bit. So as you can see down here, we got four edges over here. We just got one. So we're going to need 3 loop cuts like this, which is perfect because we can also connect these 3 loop cuts to these vertices here. And now we don't have an n-gon, but we have quads and a little triangle. Then give me 3 loop cuts like this so we can join those with J as well. And then just select these 4 edges and these down here. Go to W, bridge, edge loops. Let's fill this with an n-gon here for now. We're probably going to change it later because I do want to use a subdivision surface modifier. And as you know, if you use a subdivision surface modifier, you definitely don't want to have fucking n-gons. But right now, I don't really know how many edges I'm supposed to have on this side over here. So once we start filling the back, then we can return back to this semicircle. As you can see over here, I got a huge n-gon, which I'm probably going to have to take care of as well. But for now, I don't give a shit about that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So for now, we can just fill this side with another n-gon. So we can take these edge loops from over here. We're going to pull them backwards a little bit further. Let's see how far we have to take them. We're going to go side view. Let's also scale them to 0 on the x-axis, and we should probably fill this by connecting the edges on the outside and the inside. So I'm going to select this edge loop up here and this one in here. I'm going to go to edge select mode with 2. Then I'm going to press W, bridge edge loops. That creates this face segment on the inside. And now I get a much better idea of how I can connect this geometry to clean it up a little bit. So check this out. I'm going to give you a 6000 IQ trick. You go up here to the top right corner. You click on this little button. It's called auto merge vertices. You click that shit. Then you open up the options, and over here you got to check split edges and faces. And now when you have 2 edges on top of each other, you're going to get a vertex on their intersection. So check this out. If I take this vertex here, for example, I can extrude it along the x-axis and I can pull it out here and click here. And as you can see, a vertex just magically appears on this edge right here. And now this is very convenient because I can just select these 2 edges, I can fill them with F, and I can only do that because now I got this vertex here. If I didn't have this tool, this would be a headache to create. So guys, this is the type of shit that I talk about in my Blender masterclass. So if you want to learn more tricks like this one, go check that shit out. But now we're going to delete this vertex. We're going to select a few more over here. Let's select 3 more. I'm selecting 3 because I need 3 more vertices to connect to these back here. So extrude, x-axis, click here, delete these vertices, correct your normals, and then you can very easily just fill this in. And as you can see, the topology is fucking perfect. I'm gonna do something similar over here at the bottom. So I'm gonna extrude these edges downwards on the z-axis, delete the extra vertices, correct the normals. Something went wrong, so we got some extra faces, so we gotta clean this shit up a little bit, but I think it's okay now. Of course, you gotta make sure that you do the same thing over here on the other side, because we don't have a mirror modifier anymore, so it's not gonna happen automatically. And now down here at the bottom, I'm just going to place my cursor in the middle, delete these two faces, select this outline, delete the vertex on the inside, extrude, right click, scale to 0 on the y-axis. I'm gonna select these other edges down here. I'm gonna extrude them backwards. Now I got some more edges down here, so this is going to allow me to connect this side to the other side, and then I'm gonna be able to get rid of this end going over here as well. So let's get rid of this face over here on the other side. I'm gonna place my cursor in the middle, and then I'm gonna extrude these edges and bring them over to this side. So extrude this, mirror it across the 3D cursor, place a loop cut over here at the bottom, and now I can continue filling this part in here. I can also see that I'm gonna need a couple more loop cuts down here at the bottom, but let's not worry about that yet. Right now, I just need to take all this geometry over here to the front so I can connect that to this circle. So let's bring these vertices over here. We're gonna connect everything like this so we get a little grid. And now I hope that we're gonna be able to connect this with this circle properly, but let's find out. First, I'm gonna place my cursor here. We're gonna extrude this one more time and scale it over here. Now we got another grid here. So currently we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 edges here and 14 edges on this semicircle. So now we can delete this end gone. We can take these edges over here. We can extrude them forwards like this. Now you can connect this edge with the first two edges on the circle. We definitely fucked something up because there's no way we're gonna be able to clean this up without introducing another edge loop. But I really don't want to deal with this bullshit right now, so I'm just gonna add a knife cut over here. Fill these two faces with F. Now add a quad here, and that looks pretty good to me. And now the only problem is we have to reconnect some of the geometry in the back here, because right now it's not gonna match perfectly. We got two edges up here, we got one edge down here. So I'm going to select this edge loop over here, X dissolve edges, and now I'm gonna take this vertex over here. I'm gonna add a knife cut and connect that to this edge here. That's going to allow me to connect this like this. And now we have 3 edges up here and 1 edge down here. So now if you look over to the front, and if your IQ is high enough, you're going to be able to come up with a solution for how to fix this. And the solution is you can take this edge over here, you can press X dissolve edges, Control R add 1 edge, Control R add another edge, join this here with J like this. Now we still got quads only over here in the front, but we got 2 more loop cuts like this, and that allows us to connect all these edges over here perfectly. Now tell me that wasn't genius. Make sure you like the fucking video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We gotta do the same thing over here on the other side, so I'm just gonna do that one more time in case you couldn't follow. First I add a knife cut over here through this end gone, then I delete this face and I reconnect this. Now I need 2 more loop cuts down here, but first I need to get rid of this diagonal edge. That way I can create these 2 loop cuts, then I can join those loop cuts down here with J, and that allows me to connect everything in the back. Now we just gotta do a little bit of work over here on the back, so we have to create the right shape on the back side here. If you look at the reference image over here, you can see that it's supposed to be shaped the same way as this outer shell. So we just have to create this kind of curved cut back here. To do that, I'm gonna add a couple of loop cuts over here, which are gonna be approximately the same thickness as these edges down here at the bottom. In this case, that's 12 loop cuts. For me, I'm gonna add another 12 over here on the other side. In my opinion, the best way to create this curved cut back here is to select these faces down here in the back. You're gonna go up here, activate proportional editing. You're gonna set the fall off to sharp, and then you're gonna go to side view. You're gonna press GX and just scroll up or down to adjust the size of the proportional editing tool. And as you can see in the reference image, this line down here at the bottom of the inner part is a little bit lower than this corner on the outside. So I think the position we're in right now is gonna work just fine. As you can see, that looks pretty damn clean right now. We also have to place this at a bit of an angle, so we're gonna place the 3D cursor onto this vertex at the top up here. Select the entire surface, activate your shear tool, set the pivot point to 3D cursor, and then just shear that a little bit until you get something like this, and now the inner shape is more or less ready to go. Now guys, if you haven't noticed, this type of work requires a lot of concentration, so I need to take a fucking break right now. Now I already know that YouTube would love to take this opportunity to throw in one of their bullshit advertisements, but I'm gonna make sure that they don't do that, and instead I'm gonna throw in my own advertisement. So check this out. I'm gonna make this quick because we don't got all day, but if you want to learn to create a professional, full fucking industry standard advertisement type of animation in Blender from scratch, like what you can see right now, I made a full course, modeling, texturing, animating, lighting, music, everything. You can check it out. There's a link in the description. Now let's get back to the fucking video. Now to create the outer layer, I started with 2 circles. Each of the circles has 16 vertices, and then I just extruded everything out of those 2 circles, and I manually constructed the entire shape from side view, as you can see right here on this time lapse. There is not really too much to say here. As you can see, I'm just using some very basic hand modeling techniques. I'm extruding, I'm moving shit around, I'm filling in new faces, so it's not really worth making a 15-minute segment about this one little piece. You can just look at my result over here and just try to copy the geometry until you get something similar. Now the next important step we have to take care of here is placing this surface that we just created at the right distance from the previous surface. As you can see over here, there's clearly a gap between the outer surface and the inner surface, and the question is, how wide is that gap? We can deduce this using our side view reference over here in this case. So for example, we're going to take a vertex from the top of the surface which we created earlier. We're going to go to side view, we're going to duplicate that vertex and place it up here on top of this edge over here, and this is the top according to the reference image, and we can use this to figure out how far this other surface on the side is supposed to be as well. So now we're going to place the 3D cursor onto this vertex. We're going to set the pivot point to 3D cursor, then we're going to select this outer vertex at the bottom of this bevel here. Shift D, right click, scale that to 0 on the y-axis. Now you just got to place the 3D cursor onto that new vertex, and if we take this vertex from the top here, we can duplicate it and we can rotate it around the x-axis by 90 degrees, and this is where the outer surface is supposed to be. So now that the 3D cursor is placed onto this outer vertex, we can now take this surface, we can scale it to 0 on the y-axis, and then we're going to bring the 3D cursor back to this inner vertex, and this is going to be the pivot point for our spin tool. Now before we use our spin tool, we're first going to extrude this a little bit to give it a little bit of thickness like this. This outer surface is supposed to be thicker than the gap, so just make sure to push it in far enough. It's supposed to be approximately like this, and now we can just select these faces at the top. We're going to go to front view or something. We're going to press Alt E spin, set the angle here to 90 degrees, and we probably want 8 steps or something like that. I'm going to have to undo this because I first have to make sure that this section over here is the same height as the 3D cursor, so I got to scale this here first, and then we can select this surface. We can go front view and do the Alt E spin thing one more time, 90 degrees, and now that should be good. So now we got the right thickness here. We just have to take care of the shape, so let's just place a knife cut over here in the front. We're going to click here, press C to cut through, and then click up here. Maybe we want to be a little bit more precise, so I'm going to start the cut over here. I'm going to continue it through this vertex on the corner, and I'm going to make sure that this little square which you can see on the corner turns red. You can see that right now, and then press C to cut through and click right here, hit enter. Select these vertices over here in the front. We're going to delete that. We can also delete this area on the inside here, and we got to dissolve this edge which was created by the knife cut, and then we can just bridge these edge loops over here. And now if we place the 3D cursor in the middle, now we can mirror this, but I don't want to mirror it yet because the other side is supposed to look a little bit different. It's not going to have the same 2 holes. Here's a picture from Amazon which shows you what the other side of the holographic site looks like, so we can just paste that into PureRef right here. So with my 3D cursor exactly in the middle of this object right now, I'm going to select this edge loop. I'm going to extrude that and align it with the middle using the 3D cursor, and then I'm going to use Control+ a couple of times to expand this selection so I can select some more geometry. I want to get all the way up until these circles over here. I'll duplicate that, scale it to -1 to mirror it across the 3D cursor. Of course, I got to correct my normals, I got to merge my vertices by distance and all that other shit. And now to create the left side, I got to do pretty much the same shit that I did on the right side. So here's another little time lapse showing you how I created that if you're interested. Now let's just take a quick look at the shape of these holes over here. As you can see, they're kind of beveled on this edge here. So I'm going to add a loop cut to the inside of both of these holes. I'm going to slide that inwards a little bit like this with double G. And then I'll select the interface segments. I'll set my pivot point to individual origins. And from side view, I'm going to scale this down with Shift Y. And then I just got to adjust the size according to the reference image. But if you look closely, you're going to see that the lower edge here is thicker than this one up here. So we got to scale this up a little bit, and we got to lift up these 2 circles so that they align with the reference image a little bit better. Now let's do another little time lapse because, to be honest with you guys, this shape back here was such a fucking headache. I couldn't possibly sit here and talk about it while I'm doing it, but I also don't think that it was that interesting that I would have to make a whole section explaining every single detail here. Once again, it's just manually constructing all the different little features. I started from a circle and I just extruded all the other geometry out of that. So here you can watch me play around with this geometry until I get the shape that I need here. Now here's something that I think is going to be pretty interesting, and that's going to be creating these buttons and the screws in the back here. Anytime you're doing hard surface modeling, it's pretty much 50-50 that you're going to have to do some screws, so I'm going to show you how to make some screws. We're going to move over here to the side, and I'm going to go Shift A. I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to do Control 3 so I can subdivide this cube a little bit. I'm going to apply the subdivision surface modifier, and in the modifier tab, I'm going to go to the Add Modifier Deform section here. I'm going to pick Cast, set the factor to 1, and then apply the Cast modifier. modifier, this turns this cube into a perfect sphere. And now I'm going to delete the lower half of this sphere, scale this down on the z-axis a little bit. This is the rough shape of one of the screws. And then we just have to use this geometry on the top to create a little plus shape. So let's go to top view. We're going to select a plus shaped surface like this on both axes. And then just inset this with I so the geometry works a little bit better. Now we just have to straighten out these edges. And to do that, I'm going to use my knife tool. So I'll click over here and then I'll bring that over to the other side. Just repeat the same thing with the knife tool a couple of times until you straighten out all the vertical and the horizontal edges. And once you make your knife cuts, now you just got to get rid of your extra edge that you had from before. So you can just select those and slide them inwards with double G. And then we just got to select this plus. We're going to inset it a little bit like this and lower it down. And if you want to make this a little bit better, you should probably bevel these edges here. You want to set the number of segments to 2, shape value 1, and I'm going to also set the miter outer shape to arc. Let's also correct the geometry on the bottom of the hole here by joining the vertices so we don't got no n-gons, and as you can see, that makes a pretty nice screw. So now I just have to attach this over here to this hole. So I'm going to place my 3D cursor into the bottom of this hole, select the screw, snap that to the 3D cursor, and then we just got to adjust the position and the rotation, and as you can see, that works pretty well. And then if you look at the reference image over here, we got these two buttons. One of them is an arrow pointing down, the other one's an arrow pointing up. I got no idea what these buttons do, and again, if somebody knows, let me know in the comments because I'm curious to know and I don't want to Google it. But we're going to model these little arrows manually. So check this out. We're going to go over to the side, add a new plane. We're going to scale it up a little bit on the x-axis, and then we're going to add a couple of loop cuts to turn this into little squares and then subdivide it a few times. And then we can use this geometry to build these little arrows. So we can join some vertices like this with J. We're going to clean it up just a little bit by sliding some of the edges around like this. And then I'm just going to use my brush tool to select some faces in the shape of an arrow. Now I can inset these faces, extrude them up a little bit. Then I'm going to take the edges on the outline, I'm going to extrude those down. And then I'm going to use a little bit of subdivision surface. I'm going to bevel all the sharp edges to improve the appearance. And as you can see, that looks pretty damn nice. Now we just have to attach this to our Holo site. And now our arrow buttons are in place. I'm just going to come over here and duplicate a circle from this hole. And I'm going to use that circle to create this big circular button in the middle. I guess that's the power button or something. Now guys, I'm starting to lose my mind over here, so I'm going to hurry this up. We're going to make this knob over here on the front. We're going to have to place that into this big hole here. To create this knob, I'm going to use a circle which is going to have 44 times 4 vertices. We're going to place that to the side. We're going to extrude it and scale it up a little bit and lower this part down. Now check this out. I'm going to use 4 faces for one of these little ridges. So we're going to go to top view, and in top view I'm going to find the 4 faces at the bottom. These are going to be used for one ridge. So I'm going to join these vertices diagonally like this with J. Select this little area here, invert the selection, delete all the other faces, and now we're going to extrude this so we get a little bit of thickness here. I'm going to delete the faces at the bottom and on the inside. And now I just got to go to top view. I'm going to use my spin tool, Alt E. I'm going to check use duplicates and set the number of steps to 44. So now we got 44 of these little ridges, and now we just have to cut out this gigantic gap in the middle. To create that gap, I'm first going to have to select this section over here, and I'm going to delete the faces there. And now once I created a gap here, now I just have to fill in all the stuff in between. So I'll take this face at the top, fill that, fill the other side. We can take this entire edge loop, deselect the 2 big edges at the top. I'm going to use W bridge edge loops, and then I'm just going to take this edge, I'm going to slide it until I hit this next vertex. I'll also do that on the other side, and there you go, we got our fucking gap. Let's also cut out this little plus shape here. To create the plus shape, I'm just going to use the Boolean modifier because I really don't feel like dealing with the topology right now. So I'm going to add a little cube. We're going to select the outer faces, Alt E, extrude individual faces, extrude those outwards like this. Then I'm going to select all these outer edges like this, and I'm going to use Control B to bevel them. And now we just have to use this object with the Boolean modifier to cut out the hole here. So select this little wheel, add modifier, generate Boolean, difference, target the plus shape, apply the Boolean modifier, get rid of the plus shape, and there we go, it's good to go. And then we got this piece at the bottom where the holographic sights holds on to the rails. Now I just modeled this as a terrible looking n-gon. I extruded it out as you can see right here, and that did the job pretty well. So here's what we ending up with from this tutorial. I think I covered pretty much everything that really matters here. I didn't want to get into the materials and textures. I think that's pretty boring. I don't think anybody really wants to see that shit anyway. But if you feel like I really missed something important, then you can go get mad at me in the comments, or if you got some burning questions, then also let me know in the comments. I can make another video about that. But make sure you like the video, subscribe to the fucking channel, let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next one.